Welcome to the channel, everybody. This is Hardware Despair. My name is Ryan, and today we are playing Unreal World. This is a tutorial. Now, maybe you've seen this game on Steam before, thought about it, but passed it over, or perhaps you even played it and realized it's got a pretty steep learning curve, even during character creation. Well, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to go through the beginning stages of this game. If you enjoy it, hit like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and maybe we'll do a full series later on. But like I said, let's just get started here and go about doing this the easiest way possible. So obviously we want to go create a character. Now, one thing I should mention is most of this game is controlled with the keyboard. The mouse, you can use it at certain stages, but like I say, get used to using your keyboard. So I'm hitting the arrow buttons. You'll see I've got a program which should highlight every keystroke I make here for you guys. So let's go to character create. Now we want to, there's a couple options here. We want to go with the one that's too easy. I'll explain what these affect a little bit later on when we get to the screen, but just trust me right now, go with the too easy. All right, now we want to choose from a culture. They're presenting us with 9 different ones or a random, and you can read about the cultures. We won't go into detail. The most important factor I go with is the weight. I want a physically big person, and so this can be effective in that, and I choose the Calmo, the very top one here, because they have some of the largest size people. So if that's your goal, go with that one. It's a pretty easy choice right at the top. I'm going with the male. Again, bigger body type. Now, character name's important only in the sense that if you have died a bunch of times, you can't reuse the name of your characters who have died. They go into your ancestor list, and you will they will become saved, part of the save file. See, I've done that one before. There we go. So Hardware Despair, YouTube, let's go. Now we've got a couple portraits to choose from. Again, totally cosmetic. I'm going with this one. It's a newer portrait. I haven't seen much of it, so we'll do that one. Now the season you choose is very important. You want, this will definitely affect the difficulty of your game starting out. Spring is considered the easiest, but right at the start it can be a bit of a challenge because there's going to be snow on the ground in early spring and not a lot of berries or stuff. But for most of the season, you're setting yourself up for the summer, which is great. The autumn, which is also good, but again, late autumn, you start to get snow on the ground again. In winter, winter's if you want a challenge. If you want a serious challenge, go for winter. Now, again, we're just doing a beginner start, so we'll go with something easy. We'll do summer. Again, if you want to see a more challenging start, just let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll do a series on this. But okay, so at this screen, the appearance is now, again, just basically what we're looking at most important is down at the bottom, the weight. This is what we want. Now, the physical profile we'll focus on in a moment. Intelligence and will is the least important of what we look at on this screen other than just the appearance. But the weight is what I'm going to do. So with the yes button, we would accept this. With the no button, we're going to re-roll it. So I'm going to hit in. And you'll see, okay, so we got really lucky. The next person I rolled is a 247-pound individual, and I'll tell you, that's actually pretty beefy. That's one of the larger. It's not the largest I've ever seen, but it's pretty good. And the stats are all very, very good. We got super lucky on this. Normally, it takes me at least a dozen, sometimes 20, 25 different rolls to get somebody that's pretty good like this. But for the sake of time, we'll just go with this for sure. Actually, this is a character I'd probably accept regardless. The only downside is endurance is not totally maxed out, but he should be okay. So with his size, he should be okay. So we're going to hit yes. Why? To accept that. Now this screen is just your magic spells and magic like rituals, which aren't a huge factor in the game. They sound really exciting and stuff, but they may come in a little bit later on once you start doing quests and stuff, but early game, not so much. And you can't choose anything. This screen is just telling you what you start with. So you can look through it and read them, but I'm just going to go past this to the more important page. This is the skills page here. So when we talked at the very start about just choosing too easy versus the custom easy, or custom too easy, that's because of this screen right here. So if you just choose a regular standard method, you can't add or remove, well, you can add points, but you can't remove points from any of these highlighted abilities. And what we've got, we start with 5. So you would only normally be able to place 5, sometimes less, depending on the difficulty of start you go with. But so for instance, I'm down here at the unarmed. I'm going to hit the minus button and remove some points. And you'll see that gives me a total of 7 now. So I can go through and say, I'm not going to use a crossbow. I'm definitely going to be using a bow, so I will put that up as far as it can go to master level. Spear is another favorite weapon of mine, so I'm going to go with a grandmaster level spear. We've still got 4 points left, but don't worry, I'm going to remove some more. So here we go, flail. I'm going to hit minus and remove. The axe is a good weapon, but it's mainly a tool. But I do often carry one with me, so I'll bump it up to skilled for now. Club, minus, bring that down. The sword sounds like a lot of fun, but weight is a factor. When you're out traveling on the snow with skis, or even in the summer when you're carrying an elk on your back hunting, weight is a big factor. So having all these extraneous weapons is not the best, unless you get somebody who's just super big and strong. Now, knife is a great one because, again, a knife is a tool, which you almost always have on you. So worst case scenario, if you can do a little knife fighting, that's smart. Shield is actually a decent one. And I know I just said you don't want all this extraneous stuff, but if you are going to go assault a village or something, you might want to have some shield skills. Dodge is something you can't change. I don't know why it's even here. I guess just to show you it. But you can't add or subtract dodge. It's directly affected by your agility score, which we determined on the previous page. Now, a couple notes on these physical skills. I'm going to reduce all of them basically as far down as I can go. Now, I'll tell you the reason why. For climbing and swimming, I'm never going to use them. If they're too dangerous, you're going to lose a character if you do this. So almost avoid climbing and swimming at all costs. And it's really not that hard to do, but you'll see it as we play. Now, stealth is something I'm going to use constantly. So it's going to level up extremely fast. And I can just use the extra skills at the beginning when I want to go into my lore and craft section. Skiing's the same way. Once it's winter on the ground and there's snow everywhere, I'm going to use this skill so much it will level up on its own. So I don't need to start with a high level. That's my thinking when I use these points, because now if you'll look, we've got 12 points to distribute here. So this is really where the role-playing aspect of this game comes in, where you can start to design your character. And you won't see this screen again, except unless you're just kind of looking at it. You know, you won't be able to add points as you go. It all levels up naturally as you use the skills. So anyway, let's start with agriculture. Not super important. We're mainly a meat eater, so I'm going to leave it pretty. I'll give it 1 point to go to novice. Building is very important, so we're going to go up to talented. Cookery is a skill that will level up on its own. Herb lore. Now, herb lore just basically allows you to identify certain plants and stuff. I personally know the plants that we need to use and ones to avoid. Let me just tell you this. Don't ever eat any mushrooms if you're not sure, but that's the rule of thumb. So I'm just going to leave herb lore alone. Fishing is viable. It's a great way to keep your skill or to keep your food stores up and stuff, but I usually don't. I'm not a fisherman, so I don't go with it. Maybe, you know what? I'll leave it up though, just in case we do because a lot of people do like it. Like I say, it's viable, so maybe we'll show it off just like for the tutorial. Hide working is pretty important. You use it a lot, but again, you want to start somewhat talented at that. Timbercraft, same way. Physician, you don't use it much, but it'll level up on its own. Trapping, very important. Very important early on, especially depending on your start. Tracking, where you're looking for like stuff, it's not as important. I'm going to take that one down. So don't get overwhelmed by all these skills. Just if you want, just roll something and just put in what sounds good to you. Don't remove stuff if you want. Just go for an easier or a less easy start. But anyway, we've got a few more points. We're going to do 2 more there. Weather lore, very unimportant. I've never used weather lore before. So these look good to me. This is a pretty overpowered character, to say the least, actually. But I think we're good. So let's jump in. Now we get to look at the world creation here. So the basic shape of this world map is always going to be the same. I think it's Norway or something, but it is always this form. Now we can re-roll, basically so that we get less mountains or maybe a little bit more water. But for right now, this looks decent to me. If I did want to re-roll, you can see the commands are all listed down here. So we would W to randomize the world again. Let's hit that one more time. We'll just show what it looks like. All right, this is a good world. We'll stick with this one. Now, if we want to randomize our start location, we hit R, which we'll probably use that one a lot. This is us right here, the little red square. That's where we would start in this world if we hit E right now to enter, but we won't do that just yet. I want to show you the cultures. So I hit C, and you can see it brings up all these colors. These are the different cultures. Essentially, every one of these colors, there's a village or two within each of these areas. Some of these have many, many villages in them. They'd be highly concentrated. Now, the different cultures aren't super important what they do. I'll just tell you the most important one, the tip to remember. This teal colored one, the most wealthy. If you want to do some serious trading, come down to these guys. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, other than that, oh, and another note I'll point out, behind the hidden legend there, you'll see the purple guys. These are the enemies. They are always hostile. They're over here on the side. And this is an open world sandbox RPG, so there is no like real true like objective. But one of the big objectives I always try and do is in a full playthrough is wipe out as many of these villages as possible. And you'll see that's no easy task. Anyway, let's move ahead. Okay, so what I did was I hit the R button to randomize my guy's start location a few times. It only took about 3 or 4 times till I got the spot I was looking for, which is up here. So let's zoom in using the plus on the key, yeah, the number pad. All right, we're going to zoom in a little bit. You'll see I'm up here in the north. Now, the most important thing I want to point out about this is the color of the terrain. So you can see this white here. This is mountain. So the lighter the color, the higher in elevation is. Now, obviously, the blue is water. The darker the color, this is swampland or marshland. And the most important thing for me is that it's going to be totally, well, not totally, but it's mostly treeless. There's not going to be a lot of trees in these very, very dark areas. Now, for hunting purposes, that's what we want. We'll get into all the details later, but right now, mountains are good. We can travel to them for maybe some bears once we get fully settled, but for right now, we want to stick with the marsh lowlands here. And that's basically this region. And as you can see, we're in between 3 friendly cultures who we can trade with at any point. So I think we're in a good spot. We're going to go ahead and hit E to enter the world. Now, the next couple of screens, okay, this screen's important, actually. This one's a startup scenario. You can read through these on your own. You got things like Runaway Slave, which is considered the most difficult. Don't do this one unless you're very, very advanced at the game. Well, the one I like the best is, here it is, Hurt, Helpless, and Afraid. So this one starts off with virtually nothing. You have just the clothes on your back, a knife, and maybe a little bit of food, and then you're injured as well. And that's it. And you got nothing around you. And that one's a very challenging one. I'd say it's probably the second most difficult. But for the purposes of this one, we're either going to go with Unreal World here, or maybe we will do I Want to Be a Fisherman. These two are actually very similar. The Unreal World is like a basic start. You'll get a random like weapon and a random like tool probably. Same with the Fisherman. You're going to get like random stuff, but it's going to be geared more towards like you get, a net and something. Let's just go with the Unreal World for now. If we want to do fishing, we'll get into it later. Maybe we'll trade for stuff. All right, so the previous screen, I just hit yes to go through it. We're getting a lot of information here, but don't worry about it. These screens, this one in particular, it's like a quest, or it's not a quest necessarily. It's almost like a tutorial. So if you just want to play the base game, just hit escape. Follow along with me here. This one here, if you're totally new and you're going in, you're just going to watch this one video and you want to jump in, you might do Living in the Wild, because it'll give you certain tasks. It'll say, okay, next build a shelter. Okay, next after that, build yourself this. It gives you a list of things, almost like I say, a tutorial. And you do get rewards and stuff from that. This one is a more extensive tutorial, but I'm going to go for the purposes of mine. I don't need all this information, so I'm just going to hit escape. We're just doing the basic Unreal World. That's the normal experience here. All right, and boom, boom, boom. Let's move to load up. All right, again, we're getting some more information. This is just the encyclopedia. We're free to browse through this at any point, but it just kind of introduces it to us. I'm going to hit escape again to exit. Now it's giving us some story here, description, a little bit of the lore. I'll let you read through this on your own. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape again. And we are finally in the game. So this is the world map that we're looking at. There's a lot of windows to look at here, so we'll focus on the big one. As you can see, here's our character in the center. It is roguelite in the sense that you're only going to see, in the area of your direction. I'm sorry, direction you're facing is what I should say. And when we move, it progresses time. When we stand still, no time is passing. So we want to be careful with our movement, especially on the world screen like this, because that passes time much quicker than it does if we're zoomed in. But for right now, let's just hold off on zooming in. We'll get it. You can see that we've got a little bit of trees, but I can tell you that we're not in the worst. It's not the thickest trees that we could be. So we're not in a bad spot to start with. But let's look around over here at the other screen. Oh, at the top of this, you'll see the summer season. We're in the morning. We're the beginning of the month, basically. And this is the location we're in. Kelmala, the Dead Tree Land is how that's basically interpreted. And No Man's Land is the bigger province. So that's just general information. Then you got the weather up here. I don't pay attention to most of this except for the morning. Morning, what time of day it is pretty important to the gameplay. Now, over here is also very important because you've got your fatigue, injury level, starvation level, blood loss. These are all empty, and that's good. The more that one of these fills up, the more you're going to have to address that issue, especially blood loss will kill you. Starvation will kill you if it fills up. If your injuries get too bad, you will die. Fatigue's not going to kill you, but you won't be able to move. If you get maxed out fatigue, you'll have to literally just stand there and rest. And we'll do that a lot. But don't worry. And of course, we can see penalty to our weight. Here's what we're carrying. We'll see. This will make a lot more sense as we go along and pick more things up. But for now, we can also see our hunger and thirst levels are totally fine. We don't, as these fill up, that means we get hungrier and hungrier, and the more we eat, it'll reduce that bar. That's how it works. And we're nourished right now. If we needed to eat, I could hit E, and it just opens up the foods tab of my inventory. Again, most of this game is controlled with the keyboard. I'm just kind of pointing things out with the mouse here for you guys. Normally, I wouldn't use the mouse at all at this point. But we've got some bread, 3 dried haircuts, and 3 roasted bird cuts. The capricella or whatever it is a bird. But that's decent. That's not a bad amount of food. So I'm going to hit escape again. Now, real quick, let's go back into the inventory, but I'm just going to hit I. This is our general inventory. So now you can see here's the foods down here that we just looked at. But in addition, we can see that we have a knife and a spear. We also have rough fur footwear. These things we're wearing now, the armor and clothing here. The spear and the knife, they're just in our pocket. We don't have them wielded yet. But these we are wearing. You can see that right here. It says worn, and it shows you what place on the body it is, I guess. But this is all mediocre clothing. I can just tell you from experience, you don't start with the best of the best, but some of it's rough too. So that's, you can get all the way up to, I think perfect is the best modifier on like crafted goods. So you can get rough. These are just regular woolen run-of-the-mill things, but you can get better things too, fine and whatnot. We've got a rough skin. This is a water skin is what that is. It's not like a rabbit skin. If it was, it would say the animal. But anyway, that's what we're carrying. Not as much as I had hoped. To be honest, I was hoping we would get a bow and arrow to start with, and it's pretty disappointing that we didn't get it, but hey, we can manage. Now, it used to be that you could craft up that stuff pretty easily, a bow and arrow, but some of the recipes have been changed recently in certain patches, and so bow and arrows are almost something you need to trade for initially, which... But what that does is just allows us to show off the really true survival aspects of this game and just how challenging it can be. Because again, your starting inventory is kind of random. If we had done the fisherman one, it would have been very similar, but we might have had a net instead of the rough skin there, So, but it's pretty basic, and you've got to fend for yourself. Once that food runs out, we're living off berries and stuff. So let's figure it all out. Let's get going. Now, here we are. It's raining. We can see just a little bit ahead of us. A lot of it's blocked off. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to hit that's the wrong button. Sorry. Let me see here. Let me remember. Oh, I think it's control. Yeah, there we go. You got to hold control and minus to zoom in and out, or plus to zoom in and out. That's it. Okay, so the earlier button I hit was to rest, and we didn't need to rest, so that was just wasting time. But now you can see this is the farthest zoomed out we are, and we are officially on the world map, like I said. Now, if we want to check the whole world map, I hit F6. Yeah, F6. Now, we don't see much of it because it's all black. We haven't explored it yet, but one day. We do see the cultural borders, which is helpful, but for right now, let's focus on this screen. Like I said, I don't want to travel too much because it will progress time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in exactly where we're at. We're standing here. Let's get a little bit closer for you guys. There we go. Now when I say zoom in, I'm going to go from the world map to, I guess what you will call the actual map. This is the real map. So when you build a shelter, it's going to be here. When you build a house or you have a farm, it's going to be on this map. So this is the basic standard map. I'm going to zoom out just a little so you can see how big it is. So this is what we're seeing here. We can see a lot more because, yeah, it's all level here. There aren't a lot of trees. We got a nice body of water ahead of us. And again, time's only going to progress when I decide to move. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It's easier for everybody to see here. Now, we come up to the water. We don't need to take a drink, but if I did, I'd hit Q right now, and it asks me, drink from the natural resource. It says that down here. It's wanting me to confirm that, so I'll hit Y for yes, and he'll drink. Now, also, if I try to step to it, it says, are you sure? This water is freezing cold. Step into the water, question mark. And I'm going to say no to that. If you step into freezing cold water and without like a fire nearby, you're going to have some serious problems. Now, also something to pay attention to is our warmth, because if you get down to hypothermic, you can die from that very easily. So one thing we need to do is, well, we found a spot with some water, so we've got a couple of trees nearby. Here we are, right next to a tree. And you can see I try to walk to it, and it says there's a young pine blocking your way. Okay, so in order to start a fire, basically all we need is some kindling wood. Imagine that you've got the flint and the striker already in your pocket, so you don't need to make that aspect of the fire. We just need something to burn. So while we're facing this little tree, I'm not going to be able to cut it down just yet. Actually, that's not true. With the smaller trees, you can if you have a knife, and we do. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to get some branches off of it. So first, I'm going to hit the S button. This opens up our skills, as you can see at the top, S for skills. And then we want basically, I think it's Timbercraft. Yeah. So Timbercraft, obviously for timber. Yes, this is what we want. You can see now we have a list of options corresponding to different keys on the keyboard. So what I want is T, cut branches, twigs from the tree. So again, we could peel bark. This particular tree is not going to give us the right kind of bark. So if we tried that, it would just tell us that. It would say, oh, wrong kind of tree. We could split a trunk into boards. Of course, this is not a trunk. It's a living sapling. So there's a list of options that don't apply, but T does. That's what we're going with. All right, now it's asking me to confirm, basically, and we're going to do it. Did you see that it counted down 10 minutes it took me? And we now, if we look, it's hard to see it sometimes if you're standing on it, but we have a pile of branches right at our feet. And yes, this is the closest I can zoom in right there. So, but if we stand on it and then hit the comma button, that allows me to pick up anything that's at my feet within reason that I can actually lift. You can't pick up like a whole moose and things like that. But 16 branches, I'm just going to hit enter and pick all those up. Now I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to go a little bit quicker. I'm going to use the sequence of hotkeys, which I hope you've memorized. And I've got memorized. So it was skills, S, M for Timbercraft, T to cut branches or twigs. And yes, in that particular direction, I'm going to confirm it. And now, once you've done a skill or a task once like that, instead of going through the whole sequence, you can just hit the R button to repeat. You see that listed down here, actually, right below the command line. It says R repeat. So the R button right now is set to cut branches, twigs from tree. And if I did something else like cooked or started a fire right now, this would change to whatever your most recent action is. But if you know, okay, I'm going to be cutting a lot of these branches, now I just hit R and I confirm it. with the space button. So R, confirm. So again, there's a lot of learning to do and figuring out controls. It's got a lot of relationship to Dwarf Fortress in that sense. You know, it was designed in the early 90s, so the interface is all keyboard focused. But once you can get over that particular hurdle and you get comfortable with the different commands and learning them, it's a really, really fulfilling survival simulation game. And not just fulfilling, but extremely challenging too. So let's get back into it. Now, once we've got a decent amount of wood at our feet, I want to pick it all up. So I've got it with me. We're going to drop it a little bit. We're going to drop some of it and start a fire. Now, I actually like the location we're at. So I'm going to drop some of it. Now we have a couple of options. We can move to the spot where I want to drop it and literally drop it and then step back and start the fire. Or I can stand here by the tree and I can drop it at my feet. So I'm going to hit my inventory. Well, okay, let me start that again. So instead of just hitting I to go to inventory, I'm going to hit the D button, D. D drops it, and you can see it says, what do you want to drop? So D will allow me to drop anything except for what I'm wearing. I would have to remove it first if I wanted to drop my cloak. But I want to drop a few of the branches. Now, not the whole pile. So I'm going to hit enter, and then it's asking me how many do I want. If I want 1 through 9, I can just hit the corresponding number on the keyboard. So if I just want 4, I hit 4. If I want 20, then I hit the space bar, and then I enter 20. And it'll drop that many. But I'm just literally going to do 4, because 4 is the minimum amount of sticks you need to start a fire. You know, you can add more and get a blazing fire going, which we probably will, but just for demonstration, we're doing 4. All right, so we're going to hit spacebar to drop those. Once you've confirmed the number, just hit spacebar and it'll drop everything you've selected. So then instead of stepping back, because I don't want to start this fire right next to the, well, it doesn't matter if the tree is next to it, but some items will burn. But I want to push these things away from me. So anything that's at your feet, you can push by hitting the P button, and then it'll ask what direction. And you can see this is mainly basically indicating where you want to push on the number pad on your keyboard. So in a circle here, any direction, any of the cardinal directions you can push. And I'm going to do down. So I'm going to hit 2. Now it's asking me how many do I want to push. I want to push all of them. So I just hit enter. Now, I did that kind of in the wrong direction, but that's okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down there real quick, and I'm going to push it again. See how quickly, if you get used to it, you can go through things really quick. Now we want to set these on fire. So I'm going to hit the F button, F for fire, very simple. And again, imagine you've got like the striker in your pocket already. So you never really have to worry about fire unless you're worried about your fuel. So fire, F. Now here's the deal, you will fail. So you did not succeed in making a fire, probably because it's raining, but there's not much you can do except keep trying. So up, your hand feels cold. Again, nothing we can do except keep trying here. So one day we'll get it. Eventually, there we go. It made it. Again, you can't really increase your chances much with the fire, even if it's raining like that. Not at this early stage, at least. We don't. If we were indoors, you know, under a structure that we had built, I'm sure it would be a lot easier. But this is it right now. We don't have much help. So now we got a little bitty fire, not a big one. But what we're going to do while it's burning, we're getting a little bit of warmth off this. So when he just complained about his hand being cold and the fact that we're cool here, that will start to get better now that we're next to this fire. But again, we have to do something in order for time to pass. So we're going to hit Shift M T to get more branches off there and hit spacebar to confirm it. Now we've got a pile at our feet real quick. I'm going to hit P. Down, I'm going to select all the branches, and I just pushed them into the fire. So I just rekindled the fire a little bit, and we are going to repeat. I'm going to hit R to repeat the process on the tree here. There we go. So you can kind of get a feel for what's going on. Now I let the fire burn out. I should have probably put some more of the branches on there, but it's okay. It was a tiny little fire. If we really want to get a big fire going, then you need to cut some of these little saplings down. Maybe we'll do that right now because we're comfortably warm. It stopped raining. It's noon. The temperature's probably decent. And so we can actually do some stuff without a fire. But there are going to be times when it gets so cold where if you don't have the right clothing, you can't literally do anything without standing next to a fire because you will get down to freezing so quickly. But let's fell this tree and get ourselves a couple of long sticks or long branches because those are going to be really good for crafting up some traps here in a little bit. So I'm going to go back into the skills. Again, this is Timbercraft. So SM, but instead of cutting branches, we're going to hit S. Wait, no, I'm sorry, it's not S, it's F to fell a tree. Boom, cutting weapon. Now this case, like I said with these small trees that we're looking at, we can use our knife, but for big trees, we would need an axe. And we don't have an axe, so we could not cut down big trees. But for now, this works. This will help for our purposes. Now we got 4 slender trunks here. This guy is very big and strong, so he can probably pick all 4 of these up. But keep in mind that these slender trunks are pretty heavy. Some characters can't even pick up more than 2 or 3 of those. But I bet you, just from experience, this guy probably has a max of 5 slender trunks. That's 4 of them is 200 pounds. It says it right there. So it's basically like he's carrying around a whole nother person with him right now. But you can see he's doing okay. We're able to move. So next we would probably take that wood right here. This is going to be basically, we'll build a shelter in this location. This is a good spot next to the water. You can see this scrubby looking fuzz here. This is actually a plant. It says, it's hard to see it now because I've got the indicators here. Okay, you can see 3 growing memorable berry shrubs here. So what that means is we don't really know what this is. It's just memorable to us. So that's not its proper name. But we can discover that if we hit skills, E for herb lore, and, well, we can possibly discover it. I'm standing on it, so I'm going to hit just the 5 button for the middle. Nope, we don't recognize what that is, but I can tell you that all berries are safe to eat in the game, as far as I know. Mushrooms are definitely not, but if we stand on it like this and then hit the pickup button, which is the comma, it'll tell me, oh, it's not ripe enough. Sorry. Normally, if it was ripe, we could pick those, but it's not ripe. We have to wait. All right. But the good news is we got some berry bushes just north of our camp here. So we can pick those probably once a season, once a year maybe. Yeah, they might grow back. If we pick them early enough, they might grow back. So that's good. But anyway, real quick, I just want to point out that we are getting a little bit hungry. You can see the green bar is starting to fill up on our hunger. Thirst is okay. We're not super thirsty, but we are getting hungry. Now, this isn't super important. You can go for several days, literally for a couple weeks without eating. Your starvation bar will build up as that happens. And when it gets to maximum, you will die from it. But you can push your hunger pretty far in this game. And eventually it does affect your performance, and it sucks. You don't want to do it all the time. But it's a strategy, especially in the harder difficulties. Now, with thirst, you can't do that. You need to be on top of your thirst, which thankfully is a lot easier to get water than it is meat in this game. But speaking of meat, now that we've got a couple of slender trunks, some branches, we need one other ingredient, and we can start making some decent traps. Now, there are several different kinds of traps in the game, but some of the simplest ones are what I just described. The long branches, the short branches, and stones. So I'm going to venture away from our camp there. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can leave. I was going to say I can mark that spot on the map, but it's really not important. We can set up a camp somewhere else. That's just a good starter base. So right now I'm going to kind of look along the edge of the forest here. I'm looking for stones, and I don't see any currently, but we will spot some. Trust me. There's a little one. Okay, so let me zoom in and show you what I'm looking at here. All right, so we can see here's the edge of the forest. And this is why, another real quick side note, this is why I'm talking about hunting out in the flat plains. If I've got a bow and arrow or javelins or whatever, and I'm hunting a bear or elk and it's running, I don't want to try and track it through those trees there on the left. I want to track it out here where it's clear and open. So that's just the point that why I always start on flat land like this. And I basically try and live in the flat areas. Anyway, back to the stones. So we need 2 different kinds of sizes. The ones I'm standing on right here, it says you see a rock. The rocks are the small stones. So I'm going to pick that up. We'll just put that in our pocket. It's not what I was looking for, but it's helpful. Now, there is what I was looking for. Right up here. I'm going to grab this little one real quick. This guy right here, this big boy right in front of me. Stand on it. Now it says you see a stone. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so we go into our inventory, and you can see I've got 3 rocks that I just picked up and the big stone. That's a 14-pounder right there. So we're going to use that for a trap. All right, let's get set up. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is set up this trap. This will help you get started in terms of just catching food in a passive way. We'll get into hunting in future tutorial episodes. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more for the Unreal world. I do enjoy this game a lot, but I know it's not for everybody, although I promise if you give it a little bit of a chance, you'll like it. Anyway, let's do this final thing, set up a trap here. So I've determined this right here is a great spot to have a camp. We've got water within reach, and we've also got a tree next to us that we can constantly be getting twigs and stuff from if we need to pass the time. Water is also important when you're going to be tanning skins later on, so that's another consideration why I want to be next to water. So with that in mind, let's zoom out a little bit. Now what I like to do is place the traps some in my general vicinity. You're going to want to place some out on the world map too, like farther away, but for right now we want to stick close to the camp. That's the safest way. So I'm going to just walk straight ahead, and I'm going to say, yeah, you know what, let's set one right next to this little tree right here. Looks like a good spot. We'll probably catch a bird, if we're lucky, maybe a rabbit or something. So I'm facing in the direction that I want to place the trap, right here next to the tree. You can't place it on the tree. It needs to be either side of it or in front or back. So we'll place it over here on the right side of the tree. Now I'm going into skills again. So S, most of your commands start with S, not all, but most. Now we're looking for trapping, which is R. SR brings up a list of all the traps I mentioned. We got a bunch of different kinds. We won't get into all these. What we're going to focus on is number 1, the light lever trap, the very first one, because that takes exactly what we have. So I'm going to hit 1. Now it's asking what direction. I'm going to select the 9 button because that's going to be in the same direction I'm facing, basically. Now, if you didn't have these ingredients, it wouldn't have it checked. If you were missing the stone, for instance, it would tell you you don't have a stone at this point and you can't build this trap. But we have everything because I came prepared. We've got the knife, slender trunk, 2 branches, and a stone. So it's just confirming, boom, and it just built it. So it took about, 12 minutes or so, raised our hunger a little bit more. We'll eat. Let's eat in celebration. Let's have a piece of bread. How about that? I hit the E button and enter. Look at that. Our food goes down. It opens the food tab back up because we're not full. And we're not quite full yet. Okay, now we're totally full. So it didn't open that tab up. But you can see we've got a trap in front of us. See, it's a red circle. And inside that red circle, you can see there's a little like lever trap. Now, what we can do, the last step, is to put some bait in it. This isn't crucial. You can catch things without bait. Trust me, I catch stuff with no bait all the time. But if you want to be extra careful, go ahead. Drop some of your precious food on the ground and give it to the animals. But if you do have an abundance of berries or something, you can bait them with that. So first, let's hit the skills. We'll go to trapping. And then in order to bait a trap, you just hit the B button and push in the direction of the trap. And it'll ask you, what do you want to bait it with? We'll just do one of the dried haircuts. Those are tiny, it's like a piece of beef jerky. So we just put a little piece of hair meat in there. And hopefully when we zoom out in a day or maybe in the morning after we go to bed, because we're going to sleep here. Remember, we'll make a shelter right here in this location. And I can just kind of look northward. As long as it's light and there's nothing blocking my view, we'll see that trap there kind of towards the edge. And we can set up a whole bunch. I'll set up like at least 4 in each direction, probably more than that too. And like I said, we'll go out onto the world map, set up traps, but all that's got to wait for the future, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, if you enjoy the content, hit like and subscribe. Check the description below for Discord if you want to keep up with all my new series or live streams. There's also a Patreon link if you'd like to support my work, and I will see you on the next episode. Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and now check out this fan art by a couple of my Discord members, Finn and Vita. It's pretty good, and I love the cuttlefish.